week 16 of the fantasy football season. He has a few defense DST units. I have his sleepers this week. The first one, the Arizona Cardinals. So the Cardinals is a streaming sleeper option. I think it's a decent one this week at the Bears. That give up the 7th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So we know Justin Fields, he's turned the football over a whole lot. We know he holds on to the football a lot as well, where he's taken a lot of sacks this season. Justin Fields, even though he missed 4 games, he's still amongst the league leaders, the top 10 in sacks taken this year. So right now, this Cardinal defense, I know, hasn't done anything this year. Deep desperation mode, and you need a defense as a sleeper option. Right now, I think they could get pressure on Fields, get a few sacks in the game, turn the football over a little bit as well, especially in cold weather over there in Chicago. And they're available in 99% of fantasy leagues. Next DST I have is sleepers, the New England Patriots. So the Patriots defense, I know, has been decimated this season. I know they really haven't gone out there and put up fantasy points, but the last few weeks they've been at least serviceable at minimum. Week 13 versus the Chargers, 6 points allowed only, but they lost that game. Week 14 at the Steelers, 18 points allowed, 2 sacks and INT. And week 15 versus the Chiefs, I thought they did an all right job versus Mahomes in the offense. 27 points allowed still, but 3 sacks. And they did get 2 interceptions on Mahomes. So this week, a decent matchup at the Broncos that give up the 14th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So we know Wilson, most games, he's good for a turnover or 2. Another quarterback like Justin Fields that holds on to the football a little bit too long at times and takes some big hits and takes some sacks. And we even saw that going back to his Seattle Seahawks days as well. So I think this week, Sunday Night Football, this Patriot team is still trying and going out there to try and win games, even though it's been a train wreck of a season for them. Only 3 wins on the season. I think they go out there in Denver, and this DST puts in a decent matchup, and I could see this ball game being a tightly contested one. So right now they're available in 78% of fantasy leagues. And the third and final DST I have as a sleeper is the Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawks still out there in 80% of fantasy leagues. They're a DST that actually cracked my top 12 in the rankings this week, and I think with the matchup alone, they're a good streaming option in Tennessee that gives up the 8th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So right now it's going to be Will Levis, who's banged up and not 100%, of Ryan Tannehill starting this ball game most likely for this Tennessee Titan team. And we know Tannehill, he's had a poor season the first few weeks of the year before they went to Will Levis, and at least Levis got the football down the field and he can make some things happen, including they had an upset victory at Miami as well a few weeks ago. But this week I think Seattle goes in there coming off a big victory versus the Philadelphia Eagles, where I thought in terms of giving up points, they held that Eagle team down and at least was decent. So the last couple weeks for Seattle, it's been tough matchups. Week 14, San Francisco, 28 points allowed, 3 sacks, an interception, a fumble recovery. And last week versus the Eagles in that Monday night comeback, 17 points allowed and 2 INTs. So no matter if it's Levis or Tannehill, I think they're good for 1 or 2 turnovers, those guys in the game. And we're one of the worst offensive lines in the game as well, Tennessee has. I think Seattle could get 3 or 4 sacks as well. So that's a few defense DST units I have as sleepers for week 16 of the fantasy football season.